ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथामृतं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा. So welcome back to the Bhakti Tattva Vivek series, deliberations on pure devotion. We are on the second chapter, Bhakti abhasa. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions how Bhakti abhasa is a very confidential knowledge. Rupa Goswami has defined Bhakti abhasa in a hidden way in his Anyabhilashita Shunyam verse. And there is this two types, Pratibimba and Chaya, Bhakti abhasa. And within Pratibimba, there is three types. There is Bahirmukh, I don't recollect the terms. The terms are a little difficult for us. Yeah, Nirvishesh Jnanavrit Bhakti abhasa and Bahirmukh Karmavrit Bhakti abhasa. So in the last class, we discussed Nirvishesh Jnanavrit Bhakti abhasa. It's very clear, like when you have inclination towards the knowledge of the goal of impersonal liberation, there is nirvishesh gyan, avrit. Avrit means there is covering. That's why that is bhakti abhas, because covering of the gyan, impersonal tendency towards the gyan. And there is bahirmukh karma avrit bhakti abhas, which we quite exhaustively discussed yesterday. Yesterday we devoted an entire session on understanding the subtleties between. So basically, when the subtle body conditioning is there, there are desires, and based on desires, there is activity. There is the swabhava, and because of the swabhava, there is pravriti, there is inclination to act. So this is the secondary inclination, the gauna vritti, and there is the mukhya vritti of the soul. The mukhya vritti of the soul is to do actions out of love for the Supreme Lord, which is pure devotional service. So there are conditional activities, constitutional activities. The constitutional activities are the ninefold or the 64 limbs of devotion. And the conditional activities are what are done based on our conditioned nature, sabhava. And also they are done in order to maintain the body. For maintenance of the body, also we need to do actions. So in our spiritual life, firstly, we need to understand the difference between what is karma and what is bhakti, because in both there is action, and both look alike, but you have to see the inner intention, whether there is done for fruit of sensual pleasure or heavenly pleasure or liberation, or it is done for the pleasure of the Lord. So like that, we need to evaluate. So yesterday we had a whole session on this, and it was a nice discussion with a lot of question answers coming up. So now we will take up the third one. The third one is also a little interesting, and even this, as practicing devotees, we will not fall trap to it, but we need to know whenever we might come across, something in the name of devotion, but it is not devotion. It is bhakti abhas. Okay, even if it is bhakti abhas, it is good, but whether it is leading to Shuddha Bhakti or not, or it is a semblance of bhakti which is not favorable, which is not leading to Shuddha Bhakti, that has to be also evaluated. So in that third category is the Vipirita Vastu Bhakti Buddhi Janita Bhakti Abhas. Vastu means the actual object. Vedam Vastavam Vastu. As Vyasadev immediately in the second verse, Dharma Projita Kaitavo Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedam Vastavam Vastu. The real object this Bhagavatam is going to reveal. The real object is Krishna. Tapatrayan Moolanam, by which, right from the root, the threefold miseries will be eradicated. But here, the object is Viparit. Viparit Vastu. On Viparit Vastu, the Bhakti, and because of the Buddhi, of thinking Bhakti in a mistaken way, this is why it is termed like that. So nice terminologies are given, and by that we can understand. So 1 and 3, usually devotees will not be getting involved in it in one sense, but we should see that if others are practicing something like this, we should, especially in the outside, world, when we are out or when we come across, so we should be able to detect and be careful and avoid that sangha and be in the right sangha. So let us see this now. The pratibimba bhakti abhas caused by mistaken ideas about bhakti. Bhakti buddhi janita bhakti abhas. Viparita vastu it is. And there are two categories, Panchupasana and yogis. In the Panchupasana and the yogis, we can find this. In present times, we can easily point out Viparita Vastu Bhakti Buddhi Janita Bhakti Abhas, which is produced by the visualization of Bhakti in activities that are actually opposed to Bhakti. We visualize in activities of Bhakti, but they are actually opposed to Bhakti, and which is prevalent in the Panchupasana and in the Ishwar Pranidhan, concentration upon the super soul within the yoga process. Ishwar Pranidhan is Patanjali. Patanjali, who has written the Yoga Sutras, the goal is Ishwar Pranidhan, to meditate, concentrate or meditate on the Ishwar, the super soul. So this is prevalent in Panch Upasana and Ishwar Pranidhan. So we will come to a little bit to the concept of Pancha Upasana. We will touch upon this topic briefly. In all other works of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, especially the Chaitanya Shikshamrit, he has dealt quite exhaustively on the Panch Upasana. So Pancha and Upasana. Pancha means 5 and Upasana means to worship. So there is this concept of Panch Upasana, which we will see today briefly. Those known as Panch Upasana consider that there are 5 sampradayas. So this Panch Upasana, there are Panch means, as I mentioned, 5. So there are what? 5 sampradayas. Shaiva, worshippers of Shiva. Shakta, worshippers of Durga. Ganapatya, worshippers of Ganesh. Shaurya, worshippers of Surya. And Vaishnava, worshippers of Vishnu. So chronologically, if you see, first is Shakta. Shakta means worshippers of Durga. Durga, this material energy, is the energy. So those who worship just the energy and they want to enjoy the energy, so then in one sense they are worshipping, they are Shaktas. From Shaktas, they go to the next level, Shaurya. Shaurya means worshippers of Surya. So ultimately there is energy, but in this universe, ultimately the source of all energy is sun. If you see, today the electricity, you might say that it is produced in the powerhouse, but ultimately electricity is produced from the sun. It is because of the sun the clouds are formed, and there is rain, and the rain flows in the rivers, and from the rivers the dams are there. From the dams, the turbines rotate, and from the turbine rotation there is electricity generation, and that electricity is stored and transmitted, and that's how electricity is flowing. So similarly, yes, energy is there, but where is the source of all energy? The source of all energy is sun. So they start worshipping sun. Now, further, this is the second level of conception, the Panchupasana. Now, that energy takes on a form of a being who is a very powerful being, who is like a half human being and half animal. You know that Ganesh has a portion which is of the elephant, and Ganesh is very, very powerful. So Ganapatya. So the Gananam Isha. Gana means among all human beings. Isha. Gananam Isha Yasya Ganesha. Gana means the people at large. Isha means Ishwar. So, and the worshippers of Ganesh are called as Ganapatya. So ultimately, there is a form, there is a being, and he is Ganesh. So they worship Ganesh. So these worshippers of Ganesha are not only in India. Even if you go to the eastern part of countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, other countries, you can find worshippers of Ganesh there. They do worship Ganesh. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that these 5 types of worshippers, this is universal in the entire creation. So there are worshippers of Saurya, especially the Jews, Zoroastrianism, they worship fire, if you know that. So they are worshippers of, in one sense, Shaurya. So all the religions of the world can be put in this Panchupasana, 5 kinds of worship. Now, ultimately, yes, there is Ganesh, but where is the source of consciousness coming from? The source of consciousness is coming from a higher being, and that source of consciousness they consider as Shiva. So this is the 4th level, and they are called as Shaiva, worshippers of Shiva. And then further up, the ultimate source of all consciousness is Vishnu, and they are Vaishnavas. So like that, these 5 conceptions are there in the Panch Upasana. So there are these 5 sampradayas. Now, Let us go step by step and understand this. And if you have questions, I will take up. All five are followers of impersonalism. Please mark this. All these five Panchupasanas in the five Sampradayas, they are all followers of impersonalism. The Vaishnava line mentioned here is not the Vaishnava line that follows the general principle, genuine principles of Bhakti. So here these Vaishnavas who are worshippers of Vishnu, they are not the same Vaishnava line which follows the path of Bhakti. The Vaishnava line means the four bona fide Sampradayas: Brahma Sampradaya, Sri Sampradaya, Kumar Sampradaya, and the Rudra Sampradaya. They are genuine worshippers of Vishnu, personal form of Vishnu, and they practice Bhakti. So they are Vaishnavas. But here this Vaishnava line is a little different. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to point out the difference between them in the Panchupasana Vaishnav and the four Sampradaya Vaishnav lines. He's going to point out the difference. The four genuine Vaishnava Sampradayas are not included within the Vaishnava Panchupasana. So in the Panchupasana, this Vaishnava, there these four Vaishnava Sampradayas don't come. No, this is separate. Completely different it is. The four genuine Vaishnava Sampradayas are not included within the Vaishnava Panchupasana Sampradaya mentioned here. Sri Ramanacharya, Sri Madhvacharya. Ramanacharya is from the Sri Sampradaya. He is one of the most important acharyas in the Sri Sampradaya who propagated the Vishishta Dvaita philosophy. The Madhva Sampradaya, Dvaita philosophy coming from Lord Brahma. So it is Brahma Sampradaya. Sri Vishnu Swami. Vishnu Swami is from the Rudra Sampradaya. And Nimmaditya, the Kumara Sampradaya, Nimbarkacharya, are the four acharyas of the four bona fide sampradayas of unalloyed devotion that are described in the verse Shri Brahma Rudra Shanaka Chatvara Sampradayana. So there is a verse which mentions that there are these four sampradayas. So these are the four bona fide sampradayas. This Vaishnava within the Panchapasana is not the genuine Vaishnava line which follows Bhakti. It is more belonging to the impersonal line. Okay. Now we might think, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking all this, has Prabhupada spoken about it? Prabhupada has spoken about it in many, many places. I am just bringing out from one purport of Bhagavad Gita itself. Okay. The impersonalists are supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness, and they worship five kinds of demigods. So Prabhupada is speaking about Panchupasana here. And he's saying, who are they? The impersonalists. And they would do upasana of five kinds. Pancha. They worship the impersonal form, Vishnu form in the material world, which is known as philosophized Vishnu. Now, how many of you are coming across this term first time? Philosophized Vishnu. We have heard Vishnu. What is this philosophized Vishnu? How many of you are coming across this term first time? Raise your hands. Janardhan Prabhu has heard this term. Okay. So I'm going to ask Janardhan Prabhu only question. Janardhan Prabhuji, what is this philosophized Vishnu? Can you tell us?
This is considered that Vishnu also on the same platform as demigod, because he is not considered the source of all demigods. So they bring the Vishnu down with the all demigods level.
Where did you come across this term, philosophized Vishnu? When did you come across this term?
Actually, this wording not there, but since we have seen, because they are not.
You have come across this term, philosophized Vishnu, right?
Yeah, because I have prepared one for Panchopasana. That's why I know this. Because there this is that Vishnu Bharvahi and Saragrahi. So this is what is the Vaishnava. Saragrahi is then that is comes under Vaishnavas. It's just like it's also these two terms have come across actually.
Okay, okay. So the concept of philosophized Vishnu is a little different. Prabhupada explains it. Let us hear Prabhupada, what he has to say about philosophized Vishnu. What is this philosophized Vishnu? Vishnu is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This we know. Vishnu is an expansion of Krishna. But the impersonalist, because they do not ultimately believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, imagine that the Vishnu form is just another aspect of impersonal Brahman. So according to this impersonalists, the highest aspect is the impersonal Brahman. And Vishnu is just one aspect of this impersonal Brahman. So this is philosophized Vishnu. They imagine that Lord Brahma is an impersonal form in the material mode of passion. Similarly, Lord Vishnu is an impersonal form in the material mode of goodness. So this is what is philosophized Vishnu. Further, Prabhupada says, thus they sometimes describe 5 kinds of gods that are worshipable. This is Panchupasana, what Prabhupada is speaking about. Because they think that the actual truth is impersonal Brahman. They dispose of all worshipable objects at the ultimate end. The actual truth is impersonal Brahman, but that impersonal Brahman has now manifested into these 5 different aspects. Durga, Shakta, Shaurya, Surya, and Ganapatya, Ganesh, Shiva, Shaiva, and Vishnu. Vishnu here is philosophized Vishnu, or the impersonal Vishnu. He's impersonal in one sense. He's an aspect of the impersonal Brahman. So that is what. So this is their understanding. In conclusion, the different qualities of the material modes of nature can be purified through the association with persons who are of transcendental nature. So Bhagavad Gita purport 17.44. So Yajanti Satvikan Devan. Those who are in the mode of goodness, they worship the Devas. And then those who are in Rajas, they worship, the Bhuta and the Pretas and all that, in that verse it is mentioned in the 17th chapter. So here Prabhupada has spoken about right in the Bhagavad Gita. So I just wanted to bring out this one purport to show that Panchupasana concept, Prabhupada is very clearly delineated in his purports. And further in the Bhagavatam also there is quite exhaustive discussion. So we'll further continue with the 1 second. Yeah. We'll further continue what Bhaktivinoda Thakur has to learn. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to explain the exact same thing what Prabhupada is saying in his purport. To indicate these 4 sampradayas, it is said in the scriptures, Sampradaya Vihina Ye Mantras Te Nishphala Mata. So further that when the 4 sampradayas are mentioned, this is now in the previous purport now here, from here, continuation. Sri Brahma Rudrada Shanaka Sanakaschattvara Sampradayana. So here, Sampradaya Vihina Mantraste Nishphala, which means mantras not accepted from the 4 bona fide sampradayas yield no results. They yield no results. Why my video is getting changed? Yeah, okay. Vaishnavas who belong to the Panchupasana section are basically impersonalist, not pure devotees. So this is also Prabhupada making that statement that they are generally impersonalist. All the Panchupasakas believe that the murtis of their 5 worshipable deities are ultimately imaginary. So they consider them, the deity, to be imaginary. For us, Archavigra, Murti nahi tumi sakshat, Brajendra Nandan, Sakshi Gopal, past time, is directly Krishna. but they consider them as imaginations, these panchpasas. So that is their misconception. In other words, they believe that Brahman has no form and that these forms are conceived only as a convenience for worship while still in the bodily conception of life. So ultimately, Brahman has no form, and these forms are conceived just for upasana, because we also have a body, so it becomes conducive to have a form for meditation. So that's why they are conceived. According to their concept, when one's worship becomes perfect, he merges into the impersonal Brahman, and the devotion he offered to those imaginary murtis, whom he considers to be the supreme, are not eternal. So according to them, Vishnu is not eternal. So that is why Prabhupada is using the term philosophized Vishnu. So they consider that form of Vishnu is imaginary. It is an aspect of the Brahman. Ultimately, the impersonal Brahman is the highest. So this is their conception. This activity is simply Jnanavrit Bhakti Abhas. So this is Jnanavrit Bhakti Abhas, but Viprita Buddhi Vastu, Buddhi Janita this is. That's why. Devotion that is covered by impersonal knowledge. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hands. Yes, Birendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Dandatam. So just one clarification. Then when we see this five Panchapashaka, they are also in one way impersonal worshipping. So how they are different from those Jnani who are purely practicing impersonal paths?
How they are different from those Jnanis who are practicing the Jnana Sadhana?
Yes.
There are a lot of subtle differences, and just like in our, bona fide bhakti line, the four Vaishnava Sampradayas, the Sri Sampradaya, the Brahma Sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya, and the Kumar Sampradaya. Although devotion is to Vishnu, for us it is Krishna, Vraja Krishna, but there are a lot of subtle differences, within the philosophy also, and within the practice of sadhana and the goal also, sadhya. Quite subtle differences are there. What to speak within the four bona fide sampradayas? Within the Brahma Sampradaya, which we belong to the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So within that Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya also we can see that there is quite a lot of difference between the Gaudiya Sampradaya, which is a sub branch of Madhva Sampradaya, and the practices of Madhva Sampradaya. And then what to speak of that within within the Gaudiya Sampradaya also, the acharyas, like there is the Ramanandi line, Shamanandi line, coming from Shamanand Prabhu, the Gopal Bhatt Goswami line, and then we are coming in the Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, all that, So even the acharyas who are there and down, there are certain slight differences in practices. So similarly, in the Jnana Sadhana of the Jnana Yoga, their sadhana and their shastras, which are sacred, they are quite different. And the Panch Upasana, this is more, coming in the Pratibimba. If you are aware now, we are in the Pratibimba category now. So it is more of a, so it is coming, it is, that's why it is a little different. So that's why we have to, there are quite subtle differences which even I am not aware. Only when we explore those paths or those who are in that paths, and we interact with them and see what their sadhana they're doing. But we can now, just by the teachings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and what Prabhupada is given, we can understand the differences. I hope
And
it is clear.
Prabhu, we see that these Panchopasaka, generally they have, some kind of material desire while they are sadhana in these lives. They don't have, they don't have clear cut following for impersonal realization. They have some sort of material desire to fulfill, and that's how they worship.
They have at least the desire for. They have the impersonal conception, ultimately liberation, and they might be having gross material desires. Nowadays, we don't find staunch followers of them. Also, maybe 500 years back, 1,000 years back, when the whole society was. Now to find staunch followers who are in this path, now it has all become watered down, you can say, in one sense. So we cannot find them. So the conception is very clear. What is their conception? Their conception is that ultimately these deities are imaginary forms, and we are using these deities as a tool to meditate, and ultimately we have to go beyond the deity and ultimately go to the merge in the Brahmans. That is their concept.
Right.
One cannot attain unalloyed devotion as long as he believes such semblance of devotion to be real bhakti. If such bhakti abhas is there, which is pratibimba, which is born out of a viparita vastu, buddhi janita, then if you think that you cannot attain unalloyed bhakti. If symptoms of bhakti such as trembling and profuse shedding of tears are detected in the performers of this type of bhakti abhas, they should be taken only as symptoms produced by sensual pleasure and a mere reflection, pratibimb, of the genuine symptoms. So there are certain types of yogis and strict renunciants, like the Naga Babas, I'm just giving an example. I'm not speaking about their sampradaya, but who who can practice such kind of severe austerities. So they might show some symptoms of all these, but it is what mere produce of sensual pleasure. Just as Panchapasakas display a semblance of devotion towards their imaginary deities of demigods, they might have, very roaring kirtan, lifting their trident, and jumping up, and laughing, and you might see that scene. Oh, what's a divine scene, you might be thinking. And, oh, this is devotion, you might be thinking, but no. It's all semblance of devotion. It is pratibimba. So, just as these panchapakas can display, similarly, yogis take support of the universal form, the Virat Rupa and Hiranyagarbha. This is a subtle form of the Virat Rupa, Virat Rupa, and shed tears. This is also pratibimba bhakti abhas. So the yogis who meditate on the Virat Purusha, gross or the subtle, they are also what? They also might show these symptoms. So there is a short note by Bhanuswami Maharaj. Hiranyagarbha can refer to the subtle form of Brahma or a subtle form of Vishwarup. So the subtle form of the Vishwarup is called also sometimes Hiranyagarbha. And the subtle form of Brahma is also sometimes called as the Hiranyagarbha. These are all examples of Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas. So all these yogis and Panchapakasakas who display devotion, it is not real devotion, it is Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas. Oh, I don't know what happened, why. The concept that Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas will gradually develop and ultimately transform into unalloyed devotion is totally false. Because by rejecting impersonal meditation and the benefits sought from fruitive activities, the existence of this semblance of devotion totally vanishes. So if you think that your Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas will ultimately transform into Shuddha Bhakti, it is false. It's false. You should know that. There remains no possibility of those practicing Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas actually being benefited unless they completely purify the consciousness from its very. So that's why the Jnanis and the Yogis, for them it is difficult to come to the path of Bhakti because they are moksha kami. Desire is very strong. Impersonalists such as the four Kumaras and the topmost Jnani Shukdev Goswami could only begin new and more exalted lives when they completely renounced their previous faiths and accepted the path of. By the strength of their new exalted lives, they achieved the status of our acharyas. Of course, these are pastimes also, we should understand, but the lesson is we have to completely give up that and accept Bhakti. Regarding Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1:342 to 43. It's 43. I have already discussed these verses, so just we will go through it again. Because Bhakti Thakur is quoting here. Vimukta kila tasher ya muktir api vimrigyate ya krishnenati gopyashu bhajadabhyapi nadiyate sa bhukti mukti kamatvat shuddham bhaktim akurvatam hridaya sambhavatya esham katam bhagavati rata. Katham, how is it possible for the rare bhakti rati? Bhakti rati, rati means bhava. That rare bhava, ecstatic emotion for Bhagavan that appears in the stage of bhava to appear in the hearts of those desiring material sense gratification and impersonal liberation. Sa bhukti mukti kamat. How their Shuddha Bhaktim, how it can manifest in their heart, Sambhavati. How is it possible? When such rati is being eagerly sought after liberated souls who have completely renounced all varieties of material desires. Liberated souls have no material desires in their heart. Their subtle body is pure and they are seeking after rati. And they don't get it easily because rati cannot be got over by an hour of efforts. Krishna bestows upon it. And is not easily granted by Sri Krishna for those who are engaged in his bhajan. So the liberated souls who have completely renounced all varieties of material desires, they are eager to attain rati. They don't get it. And those who are practicing Ananya Bhakti, they are engaged and Krishna doesn't easily give them also. So such rare rati, how is it possible to find it in such people who have desires for bhakti and mukti, who have contaminated with the desires for bhakti and mukti, and they have a wrong conception of upasana itself. So how is it possible that these kind of symptoms of bhava can come? So these are not symptoms of bhava, these are semblance. That's why they are bhakti abhas. They are not real ratya bhas. They are not rati, they are ratya bhas. So that is the point. So bhava is very, very rare. Bhava is very rare. Why is bhava very, very rare? What are the two characteristics of bhava bhakti? The two characteristics of sadhana bhakti is kleshagni and shubhada. Those who have studied nectar of devotion will know. So what are the two characteristics of bhava bhakti? Who will answer? What are the two characteristics of bhava bhakti? What are the two characteristics of Bhava Bhakti? No hands are raised yet. There are 6 characteristics of Uttama Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti, Kleshagni, Shubhada. These manifest in the sadhana stage. And in Bhava stage, 2 more characteristics manifest. 4. In Prema stage, Prema Bhakti, there is Sri Krishna Krishnani and Sandrananda Visheshatma. So what are the 2 characteristics which manifest in the Bhava stage? Anyone knows? Okay, I think others also should study Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu regularly. Every year once we should study it. Both Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Upadeshamrit. Yes, Birendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Oh, it is Sudurlabha and Moksha Labhata.
Yes, it is Sudurlabha. It is very rare. So it is very, very rare because for 2 reasons. One is, even if one practices with one pointedness, from Nishtha he goes to Ruchi, from Ruchi to Asakti. So to go through these stages from Nishtha to Ruchi, Ruchi to Asakti, the sadhaka can move ahead by his endeavor, because he has got bhakti ras. He has got taste in chanting, taste in hearing, taste in studying Shastra. So similarly, it's not that Asakti, after Asakti is Bhava. So from Asakti he can go to Bhava on his own? No. Bhava is not a step which we can endeavor and get on our own, because Bhava is bestowed by the Lord. So Bhava is bestowed by the Lord. That's why it is very, very rare. And the Lord doesn't easily bestow Bhava to someone. Because if he bestows Bhava to the devotee, then the Lord comes under the control of that devotee. So the Lord will carefully think before he bestows, because he'll be sold out to him. Now he'll be his property. The devotee will have the Lord as his property, and he can do whatever he wants with the Lord. And he is completely independent, that devotee. And the Lord is just like a puppet in his hands. So that is the kind of loving reciprocation the Lord has with his pure devotee. So the Lord comes under the control of his devotee. Bhava is ultimately, the Ladini Shakti and the Samvit Shakti entering the heart of the sadhaka in the form of Bhakti Shakti. Lord Swarup Shakti itself enters at the stage of Bhava. So Bhava is bestowed. So that's why those who are engaged in exclusive bhajan, Ananya Bhakti, Krishna doesn't not easily grant it. So how come these who are practicing this Panchupasana, who exhibit these symptoms of Bhakti, how can these symptoms, if these symptoms are manifested, they are not because of Rati, because of Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas, we should understand. It is imperative to mention here that those who consider the pleasure derived from illicit association with women and taking intoxication to be love of Godhead are themselves polluted and may pollute others also. In a very cultured and a very systematic way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is writing this statement. Very cultured and refined way. Because during Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, there were many, many Appasampradayas, and Gaudiya Vaishnavism name was so bad, defamed, condemned, especially in the Bhadraloka, the educated class of those who are coming from a cultured background. They consider Vaishnavism, these Vaishnavas are engaged in, illicit activities and in the name of devotion. So they, that was the picture. So all this, trying to meditate on the trying to meditate on the thinking that we are gopis, or trying to associate and with women, and thinking that this is also devotion, all this nonsense, So all that he summarizes in this one statement. They are polluted and they may pollute also others. So we have now completed a Bhakti Abhas, in that Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas, Nirvishesh Jnanavrit Bhakti Abhas, Bahirmukh Karmavrit Bhakti Abhas, and Viparita Vastu Bhakti Buddhi Janita Bhakti Abhas. Nirvishesh Gyan is very clear, impersonal knowledge, and because of that there is covering. So that is why when there is desire for liberation. Karma Avrit Bhakti Abhas is because of the Gauna Vritti, the Swabhava. We do actions, then the Bhakti gets Karma Avran happens. So that's why the subtle difference between Karma and Bhakti brought out. This is very important for us to understand. This is Viparit Vastu, the imaginary Panchupasana, which is done. So that is spoken here. Now, somehow I feel that something else additional was there, but not able to see that material. Some further information also Bhaktivinoda Thakur states. I think that slide got deleted for some reason. Okay, I will look into it the next time and maybe bring up that point. So any questions, any clarifications about up till now what we have discussed here? We have finished this discussion of Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas. Now we'll start with the Chaya Bhakti Abhas. But if you have any questions, any clarifications. It's not a difficult subject. If you hear and read and and contemplate a little bit, and you'll get the difference quite easily. It's a matter of time also, that as we practice our bhakti sadhana, then we can find out these differences also. Any questions, any clarifications? Yes, Virendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Prabhu, just it is a little generic question. In case of these Panchopasaka and this Gyan path, how do we approach them to take to bring them in our four Gaudiya line? How do we approach? Because they have their own faith. In terms of, I mean,
it'll come up. It'll come up in the next Chaya Bhakti Abhas. It'll come up.
All right.
It will come up very soon. It is going to come up. Yeah. Okay. So your question will be answered in the next session, Chaya Bhakti Abhas, maybe today or in the next week. Any other questions? Okay. So now we will just briefly start with Chaya Bhakti Abhas and take it up further in our next classes. Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas and Chaya Bhakti Abhas. I hope at least by now we are clear what is Pratibimba and Chaya. Concept of Pratibimba and Chaya were clear, and we are now also clear with what is Bhakti Abhas. When the Tatashta Lakshan are not fulfilled, then that time the Bhakti, when it gets covered, so then there is, because of that covering, there is no Bhakti. Bhakti means Shuddha Bhakti. It is Bhakti Abhas, semblance of devotion. And now we have discussed these three. So let us now go to Chaya Bhakti Abhas. It is very important for a sadhaka to understand Chaya Bhakti Abhas. First statement of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, please mark it. Even when Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the Harinam Chintamani discusses, I don't have the chart or the slide. Let me see. When he discusses namabhas. So you know that there are 3 stages in the chanting which we go through: namaprad, namabhas, and shuddhanam. While chanting, if we commit offense, then it becomes namaprad. And when we take the semblance of the name and not the name, nama abhas, then it is namabhas chanting. And when we chant the pure name, that is shuddhanam. So these are these 3. And within this namabhas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur classifies them into Shraddha Namabhas and Ashraddha Namabhas. That is Namabhas taken with faith and Namabhas taken without faith. So there are these 2 subcategories. And now within this Ashraddha Namabhas come the 4 categories which are called as Sanketa, Parihasyam, Stobham, Helanam, Mevava. So these 4 categories, if you are aware, they come in this Ashraddha Namabhas category. You have to remember that. They come in Ashraddha Namabhas category. And within the Shraddha Namabhas, there is the Pratibimba and the Chaya. So the Pratibimba there also, when impersonalists chant the names, and because they have desires for liberation, so that's why that their type of chanting is, yeah, I'm showing you the screen so that you can, I told you there is a Namaprad, Namabhas, Shuddhanam stage. Now within the Namabhas, there is the Shraddha Namabhas and Ashraddha Namabhas. And within Ashraddha Namabhas, there is Sanketa, Parihasyam, Stobham, Hela. Sanket means you call out someone else, but you are taking the name of that person, but that name is actually the name of the Lord. Like Ajamil called out his son Narayan. His son's name happened to be Narayan, but Narayan is Narayan, the Lord of Vaikuntha. So although he addressed his son, he called out, but Narayan heard it and Narayan sent his Vishnu Dutas. So that is Sanket. He did not have the faith that, when I'm calling Narayan, actually I'm calling Lord Narayan of Vaikuntha. Or that Yavana who went to answer nature call and a wild boar attacked him, his tusk, and killed him while he was leaving this world. He condemned with a lot of malice in his heart, haram, haram. So in haram, there is the name of Ram. So ultimately, he got the benefit of chanting the Lord's name Ram, and he got liberation. The Sanket. Parihasyam, laughing, joking, you take the name, oh, Hare Krishna people, you say Stobham, Helanam, like that. So within this Shraddhanamabhas, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there are these 2 categories, Pratibimba and Chaya. So there also the same division comes, Pratibimba and Chaya. So Pratibimba and Chaya is there. Let me see whether I have that slide. I don't have that slide of Pratibimba and Chaya. Yeah, I hope it is clear what I'm trying to convey. So there is Pratibimba and Chaya within the Shraddhanamabhas category. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that one should know Chaya Namabhas very thoroughly, because we should avoid the Pratibimba Namabhas, Pratibimba Shraddha Namabhas, and we should practice even when you are in the Namabhas, the Shraddha, Chaya Shraddha Namabhas. We should practice the Chaya Shraddha Namabhas. Yeah, okay. Here I got it. I'll just share the screen. So here there is Namaprad, Namabhas, and Shuddhanam. And then when I mentioned that there is divisions of Namabhas, Shraddha Namabhas and Shraddha Namabhas, here there is Chaya and Pratibimba. Same concepts, Chaya and Pratibimba. In Shraddha, this is 4. So then he says from Namaprad, we should go through the stage of Chaya, Shraddha Namabhas to Shuddhanam. So similarly, our bhakti from Bhakti Abhas, it goes to Chaya Bhakti Abhas, and then it comes to Shuddha Bhakti. So that is why we should know very, very thoroughly this Chaya Bhakti Abhas. It is very important for sadhakas to understand this. Unlike Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas, Chaya Bhakti Abhas is not crooked and shrewd. It has simplicity and virtue. This is the glory of Chaya Bhakti. Srila Rupa Goswami has written the following regarding Chaya Bhakti Abhas. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we have seen this verse. Shudra Kautula Mai Chanchala Dukkaharini Ratesh Chaya Bhavet Kaschit Tad Sadrishavalambini. That which has some similarity to real bhakti. Because we told Chaya means what? There is a tree and there is a shadow. There is some similarity, which possesses a small amount of interest in the Lord. Kautuhala, there is some interest developed in the Lord, which is unstable, chanchala, which destroys suffering. Dukkhaharini is called Chaya Ratyabhas. Hari Priya Kriya Kala Desha Patradi Sangamat Anusangi Kadesha Kvachit Agyeshwapi Apikshate Kintu Bhagyam Vinanaso Bhavachapya Udassati Yad Abhyudantah Shemam Tatra Swad Uttarottaram. This Chayaratyabhas appears sometimes even in ignorant people by a combination of performing actions dear to the Lord, observing the festivals of the Lord, residing in the Dham of the Lord. I gave all these examples when I referred to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, when we discussed Ratyabhas and associating with devotees. We come to the temple on a first day ever I'm coming to a ISKCON temple and there is festival, and first time I'm attending a Janmashtami festival and seeing the deities, seeing the kirtan, suddenly you might experience some ecstasy. Hairs might stand up here and tears might come. These are symptoms of bhava? No. They are symptoms of Chaya Ratyabhas. They are Chaya. Even this Chaya Ratyabhas, which eventually bestows auspiciousness to those people, appears only with great fortune. Even to experience this is a great fortune. It's not ordinary. And how it comes? By the mercy of the dear devotees. Hari Priya Janaseva Prasada Bhara Labata. The semblance of bhava suddenly becomes real bhava. Bhava bhasapi sahasa bhavatam upagacchati. So this Chaya Ratyabhas or Chaya Bhakti Abhas can turn into real bhava. But offending the devotee, by offending the devotee, tasvin eva paradina, even the best bhavabhas apya anuttamam, gradually wanes just as the full moon in the sky gradually wanes. Kramena shayam apnoti kasta purna shashi yata. So, but if you offend, then that bhavabhas gradually will also wane. Now, Chaya Bhakti Abhas is of 2 types. There are the 3 types, here it is 2 types. Both are to be known for us. Swarupa Jnana Abhava Janita Bhakti Abhas. The semblance of devotion, Bhakti Abhas, that appears in the absence of knowledge. Swarupa Jnana Abhava. Abhava means absence of one's inherent identity. Swarup. Swarup means our identity. Jnana Abhava. We don't have that knowledge. Absence of that knowledge is there. And Janita means it is born out of, or the appearance of Bhakti Abhas. And Bhakti Uddipaka Vastu Shakti Janita Bhakti Abhas. The semblance of devotion, Bhakti Abhas, in which the stimulation for Bhakti, Bhakti Uddipaka. Uddipaka means stimulation. Just like, you see a very strong sense object, like you have attraction for Gulab Jamun. The moment you see Gulab Jamun, your senses get agitated. Similarly, there are spiritual sense objects like the deities of the Lord, the Dham, the pure devotees. And when the senses come in contact, we might suddenly get an awakening. So they are called as Uddipak, Uddipan. So Bhakti Uddipaka, which are stimulation for Bhakti, is caused by the influence of having come in contact with the objects such as time, place, and circumstances that are related to Bhagavan. So anything related to Bhagavan, when we come with those vastu, and then that vastu there is Shakti, and because of that Shakti, suddenly that influence of that Bhakti within that vastu can influence us. Even a Mahabhagavat coming in contact with him, then we can experience that semblance. So these both are very, very auspicious. So these are the two types which we will be studying. Swarupa Jnana Bhava Janita Bhakti Abhas and Bhakti Uddipaka Vastu Shakti Janita Bhakti Abhas. We will study this in our next class. Okay. Any questions, any clarifications? Okay, so there's one question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This Chaya Bhakti Abhas, is it only because of our anarthas?
No, Chaya Bhakti Abhas is not that experience, something which is within us, which is coming. It is because of the external factors. It is because of the external factors. Like, you're coming into touch with contact with a pure devotee and you experience these symptoms. Or you come in touch with a dham and you experience the symptoms. Now with the practice of sadhana bhakti, while practicing the sadhana bhakti, also we might have experienced certain ecstasy in one yatra or in one festival, some experience of that happiness which was not of this world. So that also is Chaya Ratyabhas. The experience is Chaya. Now, because there are anarthas still, and because there is still avaran, the karma avaran is there, because the anarthas are not, and still we are not on the transcendental platform. So that is why we cannot fully experience it. Just a glimpse we might experience. But as we practice our bhajan and we cross the anartha stage, then the bhajan becomes steady. And then when we go to these higher stages, we experience them all the time. Yes and no, I can say. We might not experience, but we will have the symptoms of bhava. It's not that only, we'll be always, tears will be coming from my eyes 24 hours because I'm a bhava bhakta and there is always hair standing on their end, not like that. So there are other symptoms that he's always continuously engaged in devotion. Avyartha kalotvam. That is the defining factor for bhava bhakta. Not even a moment he will not spend acting in Krishna consciousness for Krishna's pleasure. Namagana Sadaruchi. He's always having ruchi for chanting the holy names. So these are the visible, these are the internal symptoms we should see, not just the external symptoms of the tears coming and there is hair standing on it. So the internal symptoms are important. But yes, both these aspects are there, that somebody who is having good samskars and by good fortune he experiences a certain kind of ecstasy which he has never experienced in this world. I was telling about one of my friend who had just come on a Gaur Purnima festival to the temple, and having the kirtan, the darshan, he experienced an ecstasy, and he revealed, he confided to me, and he said, what was that? I just could not understand. And that sort of inquisitiveness is there. He's favorable to devotees. He might take up to devotion in this life. And after taking devotion, then when he starts further practicing, then the anarth nivritti stage has to also go. He might experience while doing his bhajan also certain symptoms sometimes, but again it is not real rati because anarthas are coming. So both these aspects are there. I hope it is clear.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions anyone has? Okay, so we'll stop here. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri